Howdy folks, thanks for swinging in for an update on our livestock markets. I'm Coulter Brown from the Northern Ag Network. Holy cats, we can't believe that June is already over and we're in the second half of 2021 now. We enjoyed getting to do quite a bit of traveling this past month and visiting with folks at different meetings and conventions. Dang, it is dry across the country and doesn't look to be a lot of relief coming in July, so this could be a long summer to get through. In today's report, we're going to, of course, have an update on the grain and cattle futures. We're going to talk about the stronger cash cattle trade we've finally seen. We'll, of course, look at how the drought is impacting the market for pears and dry cows. And we'll talk about the very positive video sale market and wrap up with some discussion on the recent Senate Ag Committee hearing on cattle markets. Of course, before we really get into it, I want to thank our friends at Ag Risk Advisors for continuing to sponsor this report. We enjoyed getting to see Tate Berlier at a couple of meetings this past month. You know, as we think about the volatility in these markets, if you're considering any price protection options, give our friends at Ag Risk Advisors a call. They can walk you through livestock risk protection and even talk about pasture, rangeland, and forage insurance as we look at that sign-up deadline coming up later this month. Check them out online at agriskadvisors.com. Well, this past month, cattle futures traded in direct response to whatever the corn market was doing. Corn did move lower for a lot of the month, and that did help the live and especially the feeder cattle futures, but we ended the month with corn moving back up a little bit. The feeder futures really did help the cattle video sales that we'll talk about later on in the report here. Deferred feeder contracts have performed really well, and they just haven't seen the pressure that the nearby contracts have. There looks to be some opportunity this fall, especially if we can keep November feeder cattle futures at or above $1.62. Live cattle showed some healthy gains for the month, adding $2 to $4. And again, those deferred contracts performing a lot better. Of course, the fed cattle didn't really respond this spring to the big run-up in boxed beef values, but thankfully the drop in boxed beef that we're seeing, as we typically do in June, hasn't affected the live cattle very much. That choice boxed beef cutout now below the $3 mark. I mentioned the stronger cash cattle trade. We were flat for over a month, but in mid-June we started seeing those values move higher, and they're actually as high as they've been in the last year, with live trade from 124 to 126 and dress 197 up to 200. The cattle on feed reports continue to come in, showing that fed cattle supplies are moving lower, and some analysts are saying that feed yards will actually regain currentness this summer. Of course, we're hearing more announcements about new and expanding packing plants, so hopefully that will shift some leverage in this industry and improve profitability for cattle producers. Well, drought conditions, of course, did not improve over the last month. We caught a shower here or there, but it is still dry across the region, and it's causing a lot of concern for producers. Many are considering culling and reducing their herd size, and it's just hard to say what these calves are going to wean at. Like to consign at the video sales, but what are they going to weigh? And of course, they likely will need to be weaned early. Another topic I've had a lot of conversations with producers on is the hay crop, or the lack thereof, that we're going to have this year. A lot of guys just aren't going to get a crop, and in many cases we're seeing and hearing about hay prices that are going to start when that first cutting comes in at over $200 a ton. I realize that's a pretty dour outlook. The hope for this year may be just survive 2021 and get to next year, when the market outlook does appear to be quite a bit improved. But really, as we think about these cattle markets, they performed pretty well here. We're seeing some big runs of cow-calf pairs coming to town due to the drought, but the price is holding in pretty well. At Belle Fourche, they held a pair special, and we saw young pairs sell from $1,500 to $1,750, 5 to 8-year-olds $1,475 to $1,600, and older pairs ranging $1,100 to $1,375. This cull cow market has performed pretty well this summer, steady and even higher in a lot of cases. At Cattlemen's Livestock in Galt, California, the bulk of those high-dressing cows sold from $66 to $72, and even a lot of the lean cows selling above the 60-cent mark. Turning to the video sales, both Northern Livestock and Superior Livestock Video held their first sales of the season, and prices performed pretty well. Much lower consignments than we normally see, but that's to be expected given the uncertainty in the market right now, but gotta like where these prices are. In Superior Livestock's Corn Belt Classic, we saw lighter 5-weight steers selling the upper 180s and into the 190s, bigger 5-weights 175 to 178, and 6-weight steers ranging 166 to 174. That market definitely found support from the feeder board, and the live cattle deferred futures we talked about are painting a much brighter picture for cattle feeders moving into 2022. In Northern Livestock's video sale, we saw 5-weight steers sell 177 to 187, 6 weights 166 to 174, and 7-weight steer calves real strong from 173 to 175. 9-weight yearlings doing pretty good, selling 150 to 157. This lamb market holds a lot of potential. Usually this time of year prices are moving lower, but they've held steady and have even been stronger. At the public auction yards in Billings, we saw 60 to 90 pound lambs sell 275 to 288. Ewes were down a little bit, but still selling pretty strong from 74 to 92. And turning to the big news in our cattle markets here was the Senate Ag Committee hearing this month on cattle markets, the first one we've seen in almost 2 years, and it really dove into some of the long-term issues in this cattle industry. Witnesses included Dustin Ahern, an analyst from Rabobank, who spoke about how the imbalance of fed cattle supplies in the face of reduced packing capacity has put downward pressure on prices, while beef demand has reached record levels. Kansas rancher and NCBA member Mark Gardner talked about how market disruptions and limited hook space have forced prices lower, and he talked about the value in alternative marketing agreements that allow cattlemen to be paid more for producing higher quality beef. U.S. Cattlemen's Association Vice President and St. Onge Livestock Manager Justin Tupper talked about how packers use slower processing speeds, in his opinion, and captive cattle supplies to increase their profitability. He added that producers selling in the spot cash market are shouldering the burden of price discovery for the entire industry, and he said more competition is needed in the packing segment. Finally, Glenn Tonser, a livestock economist from Kansas State, urged caution from the senators when they consider mandates that would add rigidity to a market that needs flexibility. He did say that changes can be made to livestock mandatory reporting to improve price transparency and make more market information available to cattle producers. There's no silver bullet solution to these market challenges, but we are moving the needle on improving the functionality of the beef supply chain. Well, that's going to do it for today's report. Thanks for joining, and thank you to our friends at Ag Risk Advisors for continuing to support our report. If you have questions about livestock risk protection or really anything that can mitigate risk for your operation, check them out at agriskadvisors.com. From the Northern Ag Network, I'm Colter Brown. Have a good one.